Hi, everyone. Mark Becker here again. This is the next session it's a peer-to-peer virtual world conference. Thanks to all of our sponsors and hosts that are a part of this. Going to the next slide, we couldn't have done it without everybody's involvement. And we have a couple of great folks here today from Neon that are going to share their thoughts about Livestream fundraising. So I'm very excited about this session. Want a quick housekeeping tip. We are recording this. There is a survey at the end of this, so feel free to fill that out. It's just 3 questions, 1 required. Like, what do you think of the session? And then a couple of open-ended questions with your thoughts. Want to definitely hear your feedback, make this better than it already is, and it's great. And these guys are going to be great. Here's a quick look. Oh, and if you do the survey, there is going to be a drawing that Halo, one of our other partners, other sponsors, is going to be providing a drawing and providing some swag for the winner of that. So, make it worth your time to go ahead and fill out the survey and give us your thoughts. There's a lot of great sessions, but I have talked enough. I am ready to hand it over to JD and Brian to let them get rolling.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's nice to spend some time with you guys on a Friday afternoon. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you guys are. So we're super thrilled to be here and spend just a little bit of your time today with us talking about live streaming and the experience that we've had with Neon, and specifically our Neon Fundraise platform itself. So again, Mark covered a lot of the housekeeping opportunities here. So what I wanted to do is quickly set the stage on kind of our flow for the day. We've got an hour, and we've got a jam-packed hour. So we're first going to kick it off. You see me and Brian out here. So we'll do a quick introduction of ourselves. We'll talk a little bit about event primers. And so we're going to try to pique some interest there. We're going to unpack a few questions. We're going to look at a little bit of what Neon Fundraise has to offer. We'll open it up for questions, and then at the end of this deck that you guys will receive after the conversation today, there's some further resources for you guys to poke around and learn a little bit more about overall live streaming as well. Not so much content focused on Neon Fundraise, more broad spectrum on that. So with that, I want to set the stage before we do anything else, before we jump into introductions. This is a quote from R. Buckminster Fuller. He's an architect. And really what we're trying to do here with this quote is set a framework for and shape our minds for what we're trying to accomplish here in the next hour. So the quote reads, quote, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete, end quote. So a little bit about your guides today. I'm obviously John Douglas. That looks like me, Brian. I'm sorry. But I have been in the business of helping nonprofits since 2010. I've worked with all shapes, sizes of nonprofits, from the smallest to the largest, helping them identify needs and matching them with the appropriate fundraising technology that they may need day in and day out to continue to have a further impact on the communities that they serve. A little bit about me as far as my nonprofit interests. I'm an advocate for conservation. I know that's going to sound weird that I'm also a hunter in there as well, but some hunters are some of the largest conservatives, conservationists out there. Avid hiker, and I'm a huge sports fan. I'm just a diehard Atlanta Braves fan. That's probably my #1 sport. As far as my volunteer experience, I deliver meals to my local Meals on Wheels chapter here in Charleston, South Carolina. I've been doing that for just shy of probably 9 years now. So every 3rd Friday of the month, I have a route that I've been working with through that time. And then, like I said, I'm born and raised here in Charleston, South Carolina. So really excited to spend some time with you guys today. And Brian, I'm going to kick it over to you really quick to do some introductions on who you are.
Sure. Hi, I'm Brian. I've worked with Neon Fundraise even back when it was called Rally Bound. Some of you might know that. It was kind of synonymous for Neon Fundraise now. I used to work in higher ed as sort of a frontline fundraiser, and then I actually worked near JD's current place for a company in Charleston doing some CRM stuff for nonprofits, and transitioned into this space. Used to live out west, loved the parks, but I found one that pictures in the East Coast where I live now. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. let's see here. Moving on. So why is live stream fundraising becoming such a big deal? So let's dive into that and learn a little bit more about that component itself. And really, I wanted to start us off with a quick end of year giving stat that I think is relevant here. 2/3 of people who make donations do not research anything before making that gift. And really how that ties in and weaves in with live streaming is word of mouth is still by far the most predominant way of marketing. And so we know that if Brian reaches out to me from a peer-to-peer component, I'm more likely to give because Brian asked me versus an organization coming in and making a broad gift, or excuse me, a broad ask for a gift there. Same with fundraising and the live stream component too, right? If my friend or colleague is doing some sort of live stream, I'm more inclined to make a donation because they have put that in front of me to ultimately lower that barrier to entry to make a gift to my organization or their organization that they're fundraising on behalf of. So how does that, well, I answer my own question. How does that relate to live streaming? So it's changing the audience engagement, and some really high level statistics that we've got here pulled, which are kind of eye-opening in my mind, right? 2.3 billion monthly active users on YouTube, and 50 million of those plus are content creators. And so what that tells us from a nonprofit perspective is the pool is ginormous for folks to go out, and there's a huge demand for this content to ultimately go out and ask for. A couple more statistics. Twitch has 20 million visitors a day. Twitch is probably the most predominant component for fundraising, or most known for their live streaming. It's kind of gets a weird rap with gaming and all that, but overall there's 20 million individuals logging into Twitch or looking at Twitch on a daily basis, with 9.3 million of those visitors actually doing some sort of streaming content. Here's a cool stat too, is Facebook. We all have Facebook. For me personally, I grew up in the era of Facebook. And so the cool stat here is 1 in 5 videos on Facebook are some sort of a live broadcast. Whether that's a religious organization streaming their church services, which we've all had to experience over the last 18 months or so. That is a eye-opening statistic for me that folks who are going to Facebook are more or less asking for content in a video format. And then obviously the content trends are shifting to include arts, culture, music, etc. And really to kind of hone that in, chat specifically on Twitch. There's a channel on Twitch that's just chat, no streaming, none of that content. That's the largest and most popular channel that Twitch has. And so kind of referencing and pulling all this together, it says 85% of people say they're looking for more content from the brands that they love, whether it's a video format, a stream format, whatever it may be. And so that kind of tailors in with that Facebook component as well. So who's watching all this content that all these folks are blessed with those gifts to go out there and create content and put it out for individuals? These stats are old. I'll admit that they're from 2017, but it shows a breakdown demographically on what that looks like as far as who's consuming and creating. So obviously, we're seeing the trend that I'm most familiar with, right? The young generation back in 2017 was creating and consuming the most live streaming components. We all knew that, nothing fancy there, but I wish I had an updated statistic here for 2019, 2021. Yeah, 2019 through 2021, because I got to imagine it's going to skew dramatically between the 35 and 55 ball game there. I think that's going to level out a lot more. For sure, I still think there's going to be a little bit of a dip, 55 and up, but overall, I think you would see a nice steady line there, given what we've all had to live through over the last 18 months or so. So how do we think more about these virtual fundraising events? So we've got 3 different components that we want to talk a little bit about today. And Brian, I'm going to let you chime in here a little bit. but I'm going to kick us off here on the telethon approach, right? So if we think about the old telethon where you sit down and you pick up a phone and it's broadcast out there, that's still very well and good today, but there's a different approach that we can use with live streaming.
Yeah, and in this example, this is kind of, I don't know if you guys have heard that there's an alternative NFL broadcast on Monday nights that features the Mannings. This is kind of, or was one of the initial experiments around this that the NFL did. So for the past couple of years, they've been doing a draft-a-thon. And what you see here in this screenshot is alternative content for that night for folks who are actually probably less interested in who's being picked and just want something to be a part of. That's part of sort of a large moment nationally. And so they did alternative programming where the people would allude to the draft, but it was mostly entertainment, not tied to football, but tied to pop culture. And these guys made their own donations and kind of drove people there. Now, yes, they did promote, being the NFL, they have a lot of media power. They promoted it on ESPN and ABC as well, but mostly in the sort of the bylines at the bottom. And so as a nonprofit, this might be an opportunity for all of you to have different segments of your event. So you might have something very mission-driven for one segment, and then you might have something that you're using almost like an acquisition strategy, leveraging some sort of entertainment or ambassador to, yes, talk about your cause, talk about your mission, but also weave that into entertainment. And so that's what the NFL attempted to do here in their draft-a-thon.
Yeah, so think of it. So what you're saying, Brian, is think of it kind of as an alternate to something that's going on at the same time. I think you might have froze. Yeah. All right. So I'll pick up while Brian and my colleague over here tries to get back in. Oh, there he is. Okay, good. Yeah, so think of this as a side-by-side or a parallel, like, for me, watching the Olympics this summer, right? Kevin Hart's on the screen here. Him and Snoop Dogg actually had I think a special while the Olympics were going on in prime time on the Paramount Network. And that was something that they were going through and kind of running off. So it's another way to approach, the overall side of the house. Moving on to the next component, which is a gathering approach, where the organization is creating a space for folks to get involved in a little bit more of a deeper level. So we're seeing this where it's a conference kickoff, or it's a virtual walk of some sort, where they'll post a route and they'll try to get interactive on that side of the house. Brian, have you seen anything out there in the market that speaks to this?
Yeah. So Bike for High, what they do is they're really heavy in Strava, and so they all do their own routes. But a lot of their fundraising is they all do the same route, I should say. But a lot of their fundraising is tied to training, and so people will post their Strava rides, and they'll also track their performance. That we have an endurance tracking app, so that's kind of popular for them. But early in COVID, this was very popular because they couldn't hold their events, they couldn't gather people, but what they could do is suggest, here's where you and your family can go and sort of fulfill independently what your target was. And so that was one of the very first virtualizations, was doing something like this, being kind of alone together, and providing the resources and support for that. Some people even sort of sent out like shirts that they usually wouldn't have, or that some people sent out bibs and wanted people to photograph their bibs and post a photo with a hashtag, aggregate that all up on the landing page. And so whether or not you're live streaming, it's a live event, you could augment it with a live stream. But in this case, everyone was doing the same thing at the same time in a different location.
Good stuff. And let's roll over to the third approach, is a creator-driven approach. A creator-driven approach, where this can kind of get a little confusing, where we're seeing Gamers for CHOC on here. It's not what CHOC actually did. It's Brian, you've got some unique experience with this one, so I'm going to let you kind of talk through this slide, if that's okay.
Yeah, so this is I like this idea because it took me a long time to actually figure out what they were doing, which means it's creative. So they weren't having a bunch of gamers stream on their fundraising pages. Well, that's a cool thing and it would be great to do, but what they did is they looked for corporations that had employees who enjoyed gaming. And they had the corporations form a team. So kind of like a social thing to do when you can't see each other. That's run by HR or whoever, culture committee, depending on where you work. And those corporations paid money to CHOC as a donation for the right to participate in the Gamers Challenge. And then they had an event where there was a challenge, team versus team, company versus company. And so that was basically another donor acquisition strategy because those people hadn't really done the CHOC walk before. Their communities hadn't really been solicited. And they were brought in by sort of a shared interest through work. So I thought that was a pretty creative thing that CHOC put together, given the scenario.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to the common core of live streaming is creativity, right? Being able to tap into someone's creativity where it kind of gives them the unlimited potential to do what they want with a passion as well. So it's maybe combining two passions in one and ultimately doing good for the rest of the world and the community as well. So let's unpack a few questions on here. So we've got three good ones teed up here that I kind of want to pick Brian's brain on and we'll go from there. So kind of jumping in straight from that CHOC conversation, we saw what they did last time. Do gamers only do creative driven live stream fundraising, Brian?
That was my assumption too. Like in March of 2019, it's like, oh my gosh, I work at a peer-to-peer company. What are our clients going to do? And so I've learned, as I think all of you have learned, that that's not necessarily the case. In fact, it might be a popular individual type of live streaming, which is one of many types of live streams, but we found that it's also popular to do your own sort of challenge. I might just run stairs and ask for people to give per staircase that I do on a Saturday, or you might broadcast something else that you're passionate about. I mean, if you go on to Twitch just any day, there's a ton of gaming. But there's a ton of other stuff that people are live streaming. Like some people are live streaming themselves cooking, and people enjoy that. Some people are live streaming themselves hiking. People enjoy that. So it really depends on your demographic of constituents, what they might like. You probably shouldn't try to do gaming if you don't have a lot of folks who like gaming who are part of your community. And you shouldn't feel trapped by that. You should rather say, what does everybody or many people in our community like, and how could we create some sort of virtual event around that? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense to me, and it goes back to that common functionality or that common pillar of being creative, right? You know, you have to understand what the segment is you're trying to go after, as well as, you know, what my demographic looks like, and ultimately empowering them to be able to go out and compare their or use their passion to fund another passion. So definitely makes a lot of sense to me, because when I first came in, when live streaming came around, when it first popped up, I thought it was just gaming too, right? I just thought it was, who wants to sit there and watch somebody video game for 8 hours a day? But it's so much more than that. And ultimately what nonprofits are trying to do there is empower a passion. That's at its core, that's what it is. And so knowing that we're putting on these events, Brian, and we're giving them the opportunity to go out and do some live streaming components. So how do we ensure that that event's actually going to be successful?
So what I've observed from clients that I've worked with who have done this is they try to take the pressure off of themselves by not having any sort of fully live event. So they'll always have segments that are pre-recorded that they're planning on using. And that gives them the opportunity to cut between something that's going on right now and then have some sort of featurette. And when you think about television, they do the same thing. Like there are segments of a show, even a live show, you're watching ESPN or the news. They have recorded segments and live segments. And really that is key.
I think we might have lost your sound there for a second, Brian.
whole thing. In the CHOC example, they had a virtual CHOC walk. Part of the virtual event, oh, is my audio gone?
You're there.
Oh, okay.
And we just missed the first 30 seconds of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. So part of, like, one example with CHOC is that they did not have a full broadcast for the whole day. People went and they did the walk. So there was a show, a walk, an after party. And so that is something to consider. You can have a full schedule, which doesn't involve people watching you all the time. They can have kind of an assignment. We've also had folks work where there's going to have like a dinner, a gala, and they'll order food from a restaurant in their community and have it at home. Same food, you can order menu items, get it delivered, etc. So those are kind of ways to sort of re-stimulate the shared experience without just feeling like you're watching television. Some people also like to do text to give. It's a cool feature, but in my view, it's not that useful if I'm watching on a computer, because I could always just give on the overlay. And so some people tried that and found it's cool, but more of a television thing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And so our next question to unpack, Brian, is what can you do to ensure long-term growth of these new donors that we've got? So we've got new donors coming in from a live stream. What can organizations do to make sure that they can establish those donors as hopefully a long-term donor and engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so whatever system you're using for the live stream and CRM you're using, they're likely communicating. And I'm actually going to probably ping Mark to talk a little bit about this because he knows a lot more about the CRM world. But generally, you're going to want to segment these folks. So you're going to recognize people who are already part of your community. They might not go into a certain mail stream, but the people who are new and you're discovering, you might have a solicitation strategy for the next 12 to 18 months, the people who are acquired through this. And that's really how we've seen some organizations successfully leverage their live streams to grow their base, which I think is the goal.
Yeah, it definitely is, right? So it goes back to, you asking me as a friend or putting up a live stream and I click on the live stream and go out and make a donation. It's what the organization is doing after capturing my information from my gift from the live stream to cultivate me as an individual donor, whether it's maybe not so much to repeat a donation, more it's start volunteering with them or become an advocate of some sort. There's different avenues we can take there, but obviously I think what we're trying to do there is connect and engage with that new donor to ultimately steward that relationship kind of moving forward. So that's an excellent answer on that. So let's talk a little bit about what Neon is offering from a live streaming component. And then from here, we're probably going to look a little bit at Brian's screen here and we'll show you how easy it is to populate one of these. So back in 2019 and 2020, or really at the tail of 2019 when all of COVID and all the stuff that we've been going through and living through, we noticed that our organizations were asking us to find or come up with something to ultimately engage their networks. And so what we've ultimately all done and what we're talking about today is live streaming, right? And so they asked for it, we delivered it, and we delivered it quickly. And so some of those basics that we include in Neon Fundraise is admins need to really be able to quickly and easily turn this functionality on and provide that information and provide that tool for their folks that want to do this to be able to do it. And the most common ones we've seen are on Facebook Live, Facebook Live, YouTube, as well as Twitch. Another thing that we ultimately wanted to accomplish there is make it super seamless and easy for folks to donate, right? We don't want folks coming to JD's live stream and then having to bounce off a page and then go in and try to search and make it super hard to donate. So what we did is basically build in a super easy to use donate button. You click it and you can donate right on the live stream and in the chat. Another thing that we've done is overlays, and Brian will probably show you a little bit more about overlays on that side of the house, where we're overlaying something onto the stream to ultimately show a progress bar, or maybe they've got a goal of some sort. They can layer that overlay onto the actual stream itself. And then we're obviously working to continuing to enhance our solution and make it better and easier for everyone. And so some expansions that we're working on are matching campaigns, matching donor campaigns, as well as surges, right? So we all use Uber, we all use Lyft. Well, back when we were all traveling and doing all that great stuff, you'd have an Uber charge or surcharge. Probably a bad analogy there, but that's the same basic component on a actual stream itself. So I think from a slide perspective, Brian, I think that's all I have from there. So do you want to jump in? And
well, sure.
While you do that, I am going to look at the chat and see if there's anything popping up in there.
Perfect. Can you all see my screen?
I'm giving you a thumbs up.
All right. So we're just going to start with the most complicated thing, and then we'll go way easier. So you mentioned the overlay. Yes, so you can make an overlay of any live stream that you would show somewhere else. And this might be useful if you also have viewers watching you on YouTube, or you also have viewers watching you on Twitch, and they're not watching it on your site where you're embedding it. And so basically it's a URL structure where you would create an overlay, and it would make this widget using your primary and secondary colors here. So that's the complex. We can come back to that later. Now for the simple. So this is an example. This organization last night held a live stream event on our platform. This is what it looks like during and after the event. If they hosted it on YouTube, which it looks like they do, the live stream is archived, and you can watch it at any time afterwards if you want to participate. When folks make donations, it shows up live here, and then their progress bar shows up here. You also optionally can have chat here if you'd like to, in addition to the donation option. So this is kind of that look, and then the donate process would essentially be an iframe here where you'd say, this is what I want to do. Do I want to cover fees? Okay. Enter your information here. And the next screen will be your card information. And then as soon as you do, this progress bar will move, and you'll be listed here as a donor. So that's what it kind of looks like on the home page. Now, how do we get it here? So this is going to be an example of a campaign. If I'm on this campaign and I'm a fundraiser, I have the option to do a bunch of things, change my pictures, etc. Here's where I would add the live stream. So I might say Twitch, and maybe I think there's one called Twitch Music. Then I'll say, yeah, we can do the chat. And then I'll add the live stream. And so now it's going to pull in whatever is on this Twitch channel. So right now, it's going to pull this in. Luckily, it's muted, otherwise I'm hearing Twitch music, but I can be watching this, and then I could make my donation, etc. So that's how you add it to the fundraiser page. It's a very similar interface if you're going to add it to the landing page as well. And so actually, if we would like to do that, I can first show you here that you can allow people here, as it's now we're in as an administrator, and you kind of can turn on or off the option for people to have live streams available and for people to have chats available. Now I'm just going to go to an editable version of this campaign. And it's going to give me the toolbar to edit it. And here, I'm going to change this to a live stream. Same concept, Twitch. And then I'll publish and refresh. Now, if you're using Twitch or YouTube, you can actually set them up in advance, and you can put overlay images on. And what that would be is you could have this donate button all set up. And if there was no content here, it could be an image. And then when it becomes after you start being live, it would just show there. Figure I might as well pause for questions, because edge cases are just questions.
No questions coming through the chat, but what I'm seeing, Brian, is it's super easy, a couple clicks to go in here and populate one of these and get it up and stood up and running. So it's, you know, if someone comes in, or maybe if it's a quick need, you know, not to say like a disaster or anything, we can quickly go in here and live stream something for the organization at some point. How about on a mobile device? Is this something that renders appropriately on a mobile device?
Yes. So as an iframe, it's responsive, and so it would basically be the top third of the screen on the mobile device, and then you could expand it if you wanted to and make it bigger and not have the rest of the page if you wanted to as well. You'd hit this and put it in full screen mode on your mobile device. You could also do it in a desktop device. So if there's no questions, I mean, one thing that I thought about bringing up, did I just share what I was thinking about bringing up, or the other questions?
There was one question. Let's see if I
Go
can
ahead.
get it pulled up here. Is there any kind of speaker bureau for streamers who are interested in possibly doing charity streams? Obviously, it's hard to get folks like Nick Merckx or the Tim and the Tantrums, but it would be great if there was a listing of potential streamers who have shown they're interested in doing charity streams. So I think, if I'm understanding that question correctly, is there a bank of folks that like to do live streaming? And I don't know if there is one or not. I think that would be something where the organization would go out and cultivate some of the relationships that they have with individuals to ultimately who would be interested in live streaming itself. I don't know if that answers your question, Kent, or not.
Also, Mark, you might know about that stuff more than I do because I'm mostly on the technical side of it.
Right.
Um,
And
That's
then
a good
I've
question.
got another.
I don't know of any offhand, but that I'm going to look into that now. I was thinking there should be, right?
There should be.
So I'm going to do some research and I'll let you know if I come up with anything.
With the hard-hitting questions. I love it. I've got a question in the chat here, Brian, about who handles the payment process and can it be linked with QGive? So we've got our own payment processing component over here at Neon on that side of the house. We also have a couple different vendors that we can use on that side of the house too. That's all I'm seeing from the questions so far in chat. So take
Okay.
it away, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I was going to mention is some of our clients have really seen COVID as an opportunity to reassess their programs. And a lot of our customers have done the same thing for 25 or 30 years. And they've been successful at it, but they had a big challenge. And they've actually done a lot of sort of interviews. They've interviewed people who were first-time participants last year, people who have participated for 15 years, people who run the events, people who sponsor the events. And I think if you're looking to grow into the live stream world, that actually might be a good first step because they've identified a lot of things that they just did because they did them. And an example is sponsors. So it's awesome to have sponsors, but they found that their participants found almost no value in the sponsorships because they mostly gave them pieces of plastic to take home that didn't really have any meaning or association with the event. And so some of them have actually redone their sponsorship agreements and given the sponsors specific things associated with the event to sponsor and be promoted in. So if you're thinking about doing a walk, maybe mile 3 is by this sponsor. And instead of the sponsor giving you a cup at the end of the race that you could take home and use, they would use their cups as souvenirs or water bottles as souvenirs to hydrate people. It's just a kind of like a basic example, but just different things that just small changes. Another thing that it seems is for those who have gone back to in-person events, they found nobody missed the opening speakers and closing remarks. And so they decided not to do those anymore, even in the physical events, because if people didn't miss them and gave feedback that it was there without them, maybe they just did that because that's how they've done it since 1983. And so I think it's actually kind of an exciting time to really look at what are you strong at, where can you grow, and what might actually be kind of cool to try out. You can try and fail quickly with live stream, and then you can try and succeed next time. Anyway,
that's a great point, Brian. If you think about it, try and fail quickly. That's the beauty of live stream, right? I mean, it's it can get quick and dirty, and it can be quick and successful too, right? I mean, you don't know until you don't try, right? You just have to have the tools to ultimately go out there and do that. But I think it goes back to the nonprofit as well, thinking about their base that they have already, is who can I tap into, and think about how do I tap into that donor base, or that base I have of advocates, to go out and live stream something to ultimately have a greater impact on their mission. So the possibilities and the creativity are endless on the live streaming side of the house as well. If there's any questions, go ahead and type those in the chat, and we'll try to address those right out of the gate. I'm very curious as to what this sounds like, this live stream, Brian. So once we're done here, I'm going to have to kick over to Twitch and see what it is.
Yes. I mean, I could turn my volume on, but that'd be awkward.
No. So we're good. Oh, it looks like it's switched on us. So I'll have to see if I can't find that again. But,
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else, Brian, you want to show us from a live stream perspective? I think what we wanted to accomplish was to show you how easy it is to get up on a page itself and get something stood up. I mean, is there any other gotchas or any cool things on that side of the house you may want to populate open for us?
I mean, just the key thing about what we're looking at here is it has everything you need here. And so before we had this feature, when I went to donate, I had to leave. If I wanted to do anything, I had to leave. And so the idea is that everything is present here, and that's why it has this overlay structure. Other than that, I mean, it's really simple, and it's mostly based on how do you want to leverage the tool, and what do you think is going to connect with your community. And one other thing I wanted to mention, because it's kind of new, is that we have a couple of organizations that are running concerts on here this fall. And we haven't had anybody really run a concert. And to me, it was, something new. I didn't really think of running a live stream concert. But it's something that they're doing, and there's always weird licensing agreements. And so for them, their live stream is not about growing their constituents. In fact, they can't advertise it. They can only share it with people who are already a part of their donor base and community. It's almost like a reward, because the artists don't want to have it go viral and have everybody have a free concert instead of paying to watch it or something like that. But that's a different use case, kind of a live stream as a reward for a community. And they're going to fundraise during it. But everything else we've talked about is about broadening. And in there, they're keeping it narrow, but really trying to curate and steward those donors. So just another way you might use it.
Yeah, and we got some great questions coming in now, Brian. So I'm going to rapid fire these. So does this integrate with Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram? So it does integrate with Facebook, not LinkedIn at the moment, and not Instagram at the moment either. Even though Facebook owns Instagram, for whatever reason, they aren't rolling that functionality out to Instagram as of yet, because we're seeing a lot of the live components shift over to Instagram too. It's another social engagement component. So I'm hoping that it does funnel over into Instagram sooner than later, for sure. But right now, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch are the ones that it integrates directly with. And am I misspeaking there, Brian? Or?
Yeah. If you have somebody, or maybe you yourselves as an organization, who have the ability to swipe up on stories, we have had people basically advertise their live stream on a story, and then people could click and be taken to your site. But JD is right. They don't support third-party sharing on there. You can share to LinkedIn, share to Twitter, share to Facebook, and you can broadcast on Facebook. But Instagram is relatively gated, unfortunately.
Cool. Then we've got another question from Kent. If we were to recommend a stream service for a limited bandwidth organization, what would we encourage them to attempt first? YouTube, Twitch, Facebook? Out of those three, what do you think is probably the easiest to go for a low bandwidth organization?
Yeah, that's like me. I would be low bandwidth. I would go YouTube. It's easier because you can set it up. In fact, you have to set your first one up more than 24 hours in advance. And then you can put up that preview image. Once you do that, you can set that up months in advance on here. And then whenever you go live, you'll actually just have the live video show up. Facebook by far is the most difficult because you need to start your live and then go to your personal feed in Facebook, copy the link, and then put it in here. They don't have a static link unless you're an organization with them. And then you would have cnn.com/live. But other than that, it's Facebook is the hardest. And Twitch is kind of in the middle. It's very powerful. You can do a lot of cool stuff, but sometimes that's a problem. Sometimes you just don't need to do a lot of cool stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is, Brian, I'm going to pull that screen share back from you, and I'm just going to round this out for the rest of the day.
Perfect.
And so with that, we already answered the questions that we had come through the chat. And so I'm going to leave you guys with our contact information. And there's a couple other resources in this deck below. Yeah, so additional resources will be in here as well. You'll get this deck as a follow-up tool. But that's really what we had planned for today. So I know we're 15 minutes ahead of schedule, which is amazing for me because I can talk and talk and talk on that side of the house. So to round us out, Mark, maybe you want to hit the schedule one more time, or
yeah, I think it's great. I mean, that's awesome. And I love, Brian, I don't remember, I'll have to go back and listen for the actual quote, but get in there and fail quickly, and then get in there and then try it again and succeed. Right. I really think that's the way you have to do some of these things. Right. And live stream fundraising quite often is like a catchphrase. It's a buzzword that people, drop into a conversation, and it's like, okay, well, do you have a plan? Do you have anybody in this community? And so you guys hit on all the right topics. So if you have folks that are in this community, obviously you showed how quick and easy it is to set up. Give it a shot. That's like us with this conference. We changed it from just one day, with 5 different Zoom calls to 5 days over 5 weeks. So we wanted to see if people would be interested in additional content. And we're hearing great things so far. So thank you all for speaking. I'm not seeing any other questions come in, but yeah, I really appreciate your time. Again, as we wrap up, once we hit close on this, there's going to be a 3-question survey that pops up. Take a minute to fill it out. One of our other sponsors, Halo, is going to be doing a giveaway, for anybody that puts one in, we'll do a drawing to see who wins something. So definitely take the time to fill that out, because we want to hear your feedback. We want to hear what you want us to talk about in the future. And thanks everybody for your time today.
Awesome. We really enjoyed it, Mark. And thank you for having us. Brian,
yeah,
great
thanks,
job.
guys.
And y'all have a wonderful weekend.
You as well. Take care.